Just thought I'd do an extra little video here because I have a few bits of advice which you might or might not find helpful for Chapter 7. Now, firstly, I've shown you the ideas of proof, but the whole nature of the questions they're going to ask you is that they're really asking you to solve puzzles, right? They're asking you to show something. So I can't go through a sort of algorithmic approach. I can't give you a list of instructions which will solve any proof question. What I'd advise you to do is get stuck on the questions. Don't rush to a solution bank too early. Spend some time thinking about it. Ideally, if you are stuck on a question, leave it, come back to it the next day, try it again. That process of being stuck, allowing your brain to have time to think about it and then coming back again, as long as you eventually get the answer, that is going to help you learn, okay? Now, if you really can't get the answer yourself, then talk to somebody about it before you go to a solution bank. Don't look up a written answer, talk face-to-face with somebody. If that's somebody else in your class, if that's your teacher, great. The very last resort is looking up a model solution, and I really would advise you to stay away from model solutions as much as you can, because that shortcuts the whole process. You just get the answer written in front of you, and your brain isn't having to get stuck and worry about it and think about it, and that process of getting stuck is the thing that actually helps your brain learn these processes. Okay, so get stuck on the questions, and don't panic if you are stuck, as long as you eventually get the answer. A really common feeling is, okay, I can see it when you do it, how was I supposed to think of that? And if you're having that feeling, then just congratulate yourself. You are on the first stage, or maybe the second or third stage towards learning this. If you can see how to do it when somebody else does it, that's going to help you in the long run. Okay, I know it feels as though, well, I'll never see it, but actually the case is if you can understand it when someone else shows you, then you are more likely to recognize a similar trick next time. Okay, mostly if you've got the right answers, you're away in this book, but here, get your correct answers checked, because the whole point with proof is that you need to be showing your stages one by one, okay? Make sure that the person reading it understands what you've written. It's important that everything you write is clear. Each line follows on from the last one. So check your correct answers, and that's particularly for people that are sort of breezing through the course, you're finding everything easy. I often find that those sorts of people are not showing enough working out and not kind of writing every stage down, because maybe you can do some of the stages in your head. You're not used to having to do it. However much teachers complain at you, you're not used to having to do it. Whereas on proof questions, that will definitely lose you marks. So get the correct answers checked and take the advice seriously. If your teacher says, no, you're not really showing enough detail here, you might be used to thinking, well, that's not a problem, I always get the marks. And at GCSE you will. On an A-level proof question, they are giving you marks for having a correct logical argument written down. If it's not written down, they can't give you the marks. Even if they know what you mean, if it's a proof question, they can't give you the marks. So make sure you're getting the correct answers checked. And if somebody tells you that there's not enough detail, take it seriously, write carefully, at least for the proof questions, for the show that questions. If you are stuck, remember there are only 3 techniques of proof that we've taught you. There's a proof by counterexample, there's proof by exhaustion, there's proof by deduction, okay? Just think through those 3, perhaps in this order, because deduction means just really sort of proof by thinking through it, one stage after another. So really there's only 2 specific ideas that you might think of. One is, have you considered the possibility that the conjecture is not true, and can you find a counterexample? Does the question say, prove whether or not this is true, or does the question say, prove that it is true? If the question says, prove that it is true, then counterexample's out, right? If the question says prove that it's false, a counterexample is almost certainly what you're looking for. If a counterexample's no good, have you thought of trying proof by induction? And I know there's only 3 things to try here, but so many times people get halfway through a question and get really stuck, and actually all you've got to do is split it up into even numbers and odd numbers or something like that. So think about, could you split up the question that you've got into specific cases and deal with them each separately? And then lastly, if those 2 things aren't relevant, you know that you're left with a straightforward proof by deduction. You just need to start with something which you know to be true and work through the steps to get to your conclusion. Sometimes it kind of helps to work backwards. If the thing that you're trying to prove is correct, if the question tells you that the thing you're trying to prove is correct, then can you go a stage before? What does that? What does the final statement, the thing that you're trying to prove, what does that tell you? And is that something that you can then prove, and maybe you can work from the end of the proof backwards towards the start of the proof as well. As long as you finish off by starting from your starting point and writing down your stages in order and end with the statement you're trying to prove. That should be fine. So little bits of advice which people have found useful in the past. The most important one of those is get stuck in and get stuck. Okay, do lots of questions. Don't panic if you're getting stuck on them. Make sure you've got plenty of time, obviously, before the exam, so you've got time to be stuck and solve your problems. But that is how you're going to learn this. You're not going to learn this by sort of staring at the questions, watching other people do them. That's no good. You've got to actually try them yourself. Good luck.